Hello and welcome to Spirit of Nature Art and part 4 already of the Enchanted Garden Altered book collaboration with the amazing Rachel Tribble. So today I'm working on this right hand flap out page next to the dragonfly pockets, and Rachel sent through to me these amazing kind of forest sketches, these really enchanted sketches. There's always little kind of forest huts on them, and I was totally sold on them. She sent them through as much smaller as potential for little tags, but I wanted to print it out big and really kind of go to town with it. So I'm just going to trim off the white edges here so I can get this kind of trimmed down to size so I can see what I'm working with, because I want this to be the background of this page. And actually I've decided I'm not going to trim all of that white edge off here, because that's actually going to kind of help me fit it to the page here. And I'm just going to mark the top there where I need to trim that off. So we can see here that the cardboard page is a little bit bigger than the actual image, but that's fine because I already have a little plan as to what I want to do with that to help it kind of fit in with the whole project. So we're just going to put the book out of the way for a moment. And much as I really love this in black and white, I love that contrast, I kind of felt in order for it to fit with this project, I wanted to give it a little bit of colour, but nothing too much. I didn't want to go really overboard because actually the sketch is so gorgeous. So I'm just going in with a little bit of distressing just to add almost like a little colour wash to it. I'm using bundled sage here, one of my favourite greens. I love this. And just kind of building up the layers across the whole of this image. And I've also gone in with vintage photo around the edges there. And I'm just now going back in again with the bundled sage just to blend that vintage photo in a little bit more. And now going in with some ground espresso just to kind of really darken the edges. And I'm just building these layers up until I am happy with the intensity of them. I think that's what it was, because the vibrancy of those dragonflies is so great. I really felt this needed just a little bit of colour to help it stand up next to those beautiful dragonflies. So just as you can see, going back in again now with the ground espresso and just pulling that in a little bit more just to add that kind of element of depth around the edge, almost vignetting it. And just going back over and over and blending those colours until I'm happy. And here's why I'm not worried about that white strip at the edge there, because I am back with my dictionary here and tearing some of that dictionary page so that we can have a strip down the side that matches the strips that we have on the dragonfly pocket page. That's quite tricky to say. So I'm just cutting this or tearing this down to size. Like that. And I've used my die cutting machine to cut out the specimen slides from an old suspension file. That's why we've got this lovely green colour card here. These aren't the ones from the Sizzix Tim Holtz Chapter 3 collection. These ones are bigger than that. So I'm just edging them with some vintage photo just to add a little bit of age to them. And I have pulled out my Chapter 3 dies as well, just to get some tags and also some little signs and frames to be able to put on the slides like this. So this specimen slide here has come from the Chapter 3 Sizzix dies, and I'm just getting the distress ink onto it just to kind of add a sort of deeper colour to that craft cardstock, and just fiddling around with how I want this to layer up on that slide there. Again, I want to bring in some of this dictionary page using things regularly throughout a project helps everything to come together. So you will see the dictionary page and gold all the way through this project, because it just helps all of the pages come together as one. So I'm just fiddling around here, looking at what size I want that piece of dictionary page to be, to sit behind that specimen sign. And now I'm happy with the size of that. I am going to distress ink it with Vintage Photo like I have done everything else, just to help those edges really kind of pop and stand out from the background. Before I stick it down, I just want to put some background stamping on, so I am using my Tim Holtz Field Notes and possibly some eccentric stamp set, just to add some details to the background. Used Vintage Photo and I think that's Barn Door, just to add a little bit of something different. And that's where my little bit of dictionary page is going to go. I wanted to do the stamping first so it peeked out from behind the dictionary page. Again, the more layers you've got, the more depth there appears to be, the older it appears to be. Sticking down the specimen sign. And you know, I didn't like the black frame that I've got there, so you'll notice that I do go away and I cut that same frame out of the same green suspension file cardstock. So it didn't magically turn from black to green. And I'm just doing that really, really fiddly thing. I want the little kind of hole from the P to sit in there. So I've just given that a little bit of colour as well. So it's got the same distress ink on it as the rest of it. And just used my kind of pokey tool to put it in place. So you'll see that black frame magically change to a green one there. So again, a bit of distress ink, and now just going to glue that in place. And just giving it a real gentle tap down so that we don't get glue splurging all over the place. And mopping up any little bits that do seep out. And it just felt like they needed a little bit more kind of detail with the stamping there. So I think that's the same Paper Artsy Mini stamp that I used in the last episode. Script is the word I was looking for, just to add a little bit more detail on the back there. And now I've got a little bit of acetate. I'm not sure, this might just be from some packaging, or it might actually be a bought piece of acetate that I've stolen from my husband's stash. He's a maker as well, so I can go and raid his things. So I'm just putting this in place and trimming it to size so that we have a bit of acetate in that specimen slide window there, like that. And I like to glue mine in rather than double-sided sticky tape, but I pop little dots of glue like this. So you'll see when we pop the acetate down, rather than the glue all splurging out into the frame area, those little dots just splurge together to form a line. So again, I'm just tapping it down really gently. And I find, for me, that's a little bit easier. If you find it easier using double-sided, please do. And now I'm bringing in some of Rachel's fabulous cards. So these ones are just beautiful. And I'm just lining these up and kind of like just auditioning which ones I want, which of these flowers are going to sit inside the slides here, and just using my pencil to make some marks so that I can cut the flowers out to sit in that specimen slide frame. And once I've got that roughly in the place that I want, I can trim that down to size a lot better. I'm going to use the same method to stick this in, popping the little tiny beads of glue all along the edge of that image. And then I'm going to place that down, and then I am going to make sure that that's in exactly the right place before I then drop that down and let it make contact. And just making sure that's properly stuck down, because we've got acetate and we've got slightly glossy card there. And the idea is we'll have a little tag that goes in behind that. So now that specimen slide is stuck down properly, I'm just going to add a few little extra embellishments here. So I've got some little Tim Holtz brads, and I know the legs are too long, but I will go in and clip those. I do actually go back and change the brads in the top for eyelets in the end, so you'll see that a little bit later on. And I've just got my little wire trimmers there just to chop the excess off those brads so they're not poking out. And then just to make sure they are as flat as possible so they don't get in the way of gluing things, I just give it a good press with my steel rule. So here's the bit of dictionary page that I stuck together to make one long piece. So I'm just giving it the Distress ink treatment, so we can see how that slide is going to go, and the little journaling card will tuck in the back there. So now I want to make the little journaling tag look a little bit better than that bit of craft stock. It was just a little bit of offcut. I had quite a few offcuts, I think, because I'd chopped something down to a particular size and I'd needed quite a few sheets of it. So I've got all these little pieces that are this size, so I just chopped the corners off to make it a tag, and it's perfect for this project. So I'm just using up some scraps of tea dye paper here just to give it a nice open space for journaling on the back, and then just trimming around that. And then we're back to the dictionary page. Just going to do the same thing here, just covering that in glue stick. I always just quickly read the piece of dictionary page and make sure there's no rude words on it. I did once put a dictionary page on something and really wished I hadn't. The word was completely not appropriate, so I had to cover it over. So I always just double check now. So just trimming all the way around the edge of that. And bringing in another bit of that torn page from the original book. So this was already torn like that from doing the last page, and just putting that in place, holding it in place while I trim around it. So it's that same theme again that we had on the Dragonfly pockets and the Dragonfly pocket page and the Dragonfly pocket tags. So again, following that theme through as many times as possible through the project just helps to pull everything together. So sticking that down in place and trimming that extra little corner off, and distressing the edges, and we have ourselves a lovely little journaling tag to go behind the pocket that we will create from the specimen slide. And I'm just going to bring in a little bit of tea dye Distress Oxide there just to take away that. I mean, it's a vintage dictionary page, but the paper is still quite bright white compared to everything else. Just using my crocodile there just to make a little hole in the top so that it will go like that. So now I want to turn my attention to the background. And I've got some more gold. So I got some gold leaf there, and I have some gold leaf glue here. So I'm going to move everything out of the way because everything is about to get covered in gold. including me, including the rest of my art room, the floor, and I'm pretty sure one of the cats walked past with a suspicious glint of gold on their fur as well. So I'm using a really fine paintbrush here to paint that glue into each of those leaves that Rachel has drawn. Now I've printed this out on just a normal kind of cardstock, nothing special, no photo paper, anything like that. So this is quite absorbent paper. So normally you would leave this glue to dry for maybe 15-20 minutes and it would dry tacky so that you could then add the gold foil like this. Only this paper is quite absorbent, so it was absorbing in really quickly and not actually drying tacky. So I was having to just figure out as I went along, and actually putting the gold leaf on almost immediately and only doing a few leaves at a time was what worked. So play around with what you've got. It's going to change as well depending on, you know, the temperature and all of that. So painting on the glue, then putting it on the gold leaf, and then using a really fine brush here to brush away the excess that's left. And this is where everything starts to go everywhere. I'm going to be finding gold for a long time. It's a bit like glitter, isn't it? Once you've opened it, it's always there somewhere on some level. So now I have gold leafed the background, and actually what I did do is I went back over that at least once, maybe twice, just to really get the effect that I wanted and make sure any little bits that had got sort of missed or left were covered over. And you will see that I have created the second two slides. You will see also that I've swapped the brads out for eyelets in the top corners. And I have also used these little tags that were in that Sizzix die set, the chapter 3 die set, and just given them a little bit of distress ink. And I'm now back with the field notes stamp set and adding a little bit of detail to them. And of course, gold is the other thing that we want to run through this project. So this is a bit of the Sizzix, I think it's Lustre Wax in the gold. I'm just taking a bit onto my finger. I've got a little bit of card there that I'm just rubbing it off onto, so that I haven't got loads on my finger, just a very small amount, and I'm just using a very light touch just to go around the edges, anything where there is texture, so across the word there and around the edges where there's texture from the die. And I'm also going around the edge of each of those little tags, which you'll see I've now put the eyelet in and a little bit of Sari ribbon to match the tags that are in the dragonfly pockets. And so I'm just putting a very, very small amount on my finger and just rubbing that around. And then what I want to do, one of the reasons why I changed the brads for the eyelets, apart from the fact they looked good, was I wanted to have something dangling from up there. So I've just taken some normal garden string and I've split that string into the 3 strands, so it's much finer. And I'm threading on the medium and the small of the tags from that Sizzix die cut set. I'm just tying that into place and just trimming that off. And then I found these little gold leaves in my stash that I think I had for probably like 10 years or something. And I thought they were perfect because they matched obviously the lovely gold leaves that we have foiled on the background. So I've just used a tiny bit of glue and stuck that in between those 2 tags. So we've got a nice little kind of extra little tag in the top corner of each of those slides like that. So now bringing back that page, look how wonderful those leaves are. I've also put some gold leaf onto the some of those spirals that were there as well, just to pop them out. And just placing the slides in the order I want them in, and just testing out how it's going to look with those little pockets in there, making sure I'm happy with how everything is. And now it's time to look at fitting everything together into the actual lap book. So this is where it's going to go, but we can still see that black book tape that I used to place the flap there. So, and also the edge of that flap is kind of open and exposed. So the first thing we are going to do is edge that piece of cardboard in the same way that we attached it to the original book. So I'm just going to get some of that same book tape, and this was a bit tricky to be able to show on the video for you, so just excuse me if my hands and head get in the way. So I'm just placing that halfway and then just running that up the side as well, exactly the same. So halfway, you can just about see that there. And I'm going to do the same along the top as well. So that tape is running halfway in the middle of that whole piece of card there. So just snipping that off, and I'm just running my finger all the way along the edge there. So I'm attaching that tape all the way around, and then I'm just going to get my scissors and I'm going to snip out the corners. So same as you would if you were doing a pocket out of paper or card. Just going to snip the corners out and then fold that tape over so that it creates that nice sealed edge all the way around. Really pressing that into place, giving it a bit of a burnish as well, just to get rid of any air bubbles or creases. And then the same on the other side here, we're just going to snip those corners out so that we can fold it down the other side as well. So it's nicely sealed, all nice and neat and tidy, and it's not going to get battered as it gets used. But we've got this bit of black down the middle here that we want to cover over. So I'm bringing in that same lovely ribbon that I used in the central spine in the last episode. I'm just cutting that to length and just giving it a little bit of a distress with vintage photo. And then I think I put a little bit of ground espresso just around the very edge as well. And I just want to stick that in place really, just to cover up that book tape, and so it will match that central spine as well. And the book page will go on top like this. So just using my tacky glue that I've used all the way through, or HiTack, I call it tacky, but I think it's called HiTack if you order it. Just covering, I'm just going to do the first kind of half just to get it, make sure I'm in the right place, and I'm really burnishing into the fold. So where that flap folds it in, I really want to burnish into that gap. So just really pushing into that fold there, so that when we open and close the book, it all stays nicely in place. So now it's time to put it all together. And before I do, I just want to add a last little bit of edging with some distressing. So I'm going in with a much darker ground espresso now, just to really finish off those edges. I love how that gold looks. It's a good job really, because it's everywhere in my art room now. And then just getting everything in the way order I want it to, so that I can now stick down this bit of dictionary page. But again, I'm just going to put that little dab of tea dye on it just to take away the harsh whiteness. Just gluing all the way around the edge and all the way in the middle as well before sticking that down in place. Just finding that central point now so that I can start to add the specimen slides. When I first made these, I did originally think that I would create the pocket within the slide, so I didn't glue down that edge, but actually that's just going to be way too fiddly to try and get your tag in and out of there all the time. So I'm just going to stick down the whole slide as a pocket. So just gluing those three edges and lining that up with the others. And remembering, because we've got brads and we've got eyelets, just really pushing that down to make sure it's properly adhering, because we're only gluing around the edges. And now just popping those little journaling cards in. I think it looks so lovely. I really had no idea this is how it was going to be. I just knew I was going to use that background page, and everything else just kind of came from there. So I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. Just using my big bottle of HiTack glue here now because this is a big space. I want to get plenty of glue on here, particularly around the edges there. So I'm just going to give that a good smear around so as much of that glue is in contact and isn't just going to splurge out. It's actually going to help that page to properly adhere. Now you could have said it would have been easier to glue the whole thing down before I put the slides on, but I like to finish as much as possible before I glue it in, just in case there's any errors and I decide that I want to start again. And I want to be really careful pushing this down because I've got all that wonderful gold leaf. I don't want to rub it off. So I'm just going to put down a piece of craft kind of scrap there and just rub over the top of that. So I'm not rubbing any of that gold leaf, but I am making sure that page is properly contacted with the flap below. So popping back those little journaling cards and seeing the final thing. I'm so pleased with this. I love it. I love it. I love how the whole thing has come together, how it contrasts yet complements with the dragonfly pockets as well. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this page come together, and I'm already starting to have a few little ideas about what the next page is going to be. So come back soon and it will be episode 5 before we know it.